Yep.
Then you go back and drink some more. You don't.
You could do that.
So it's like you're still getting your whole day of entertainment. You're just only skiing for the 2-hour portion.
Yep. But it only saves you.
And you're saving $20 and spending that on whatever. Right? Food.
Well, it's New York, so spending that on 1.5 drinks.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
Or like 2 slices of shitty pizza.
And the mountain's happy with that, right? They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, can you show up there, right, with no skiing, just show up and just like hang out and eat and leave?
Most ski lodges just open. Free. You can just hang out.
And you don't have to buy any tickets or entry fees. It's like a restaurant, basically.
Yep. That is actually why I'm looking at the ski trip, like another private trip for our friends, because a lot of people might want to come just to hang out and play board games in the place I rent while some of us go ski.
Right, but the point is at a public skiing
also just
place,
open. You can just some people do just go.
You have to pay. You only have to pay if you're gonna get on the lift.
Yep. In fact, very often families will go and one person, often the mom, just because the way society is, will not ski and just hang out in the lodge all day with all the stuff instead of paying for lockers.
I mean, and also, could you? Right, the ticket is a lift ticket, right?
I see.
To get on the lift, they check you. They check you when you're getting on the lift. Is when the ticket is.
Those ski resorts,
you hang it on your zipper, right? And they look at it.
If you are willing to fucking walk up that mountain yourself, Godspeed. That's totally okay, and you're gonna get maybe one run in the whole day.
Right, but I'm saying that the ticket is only for the lift, right? You can just go up the mountain.
I was at Killington once. And me and Chase, and there was we saw these 2 snowboarders walking up the mountain. We skied like 5 runs up and down this one run, and in that time, we saw them slowly approach the top of the mountain.
But I mean, walking up the mountain could be a fun thing in its own, and it costs you nothing. And then you get a free ski,
Some ski resorts, you have to pay for an uphill ticket. Because some people ski up on purpose, like for fun, for real.
Well, I guess it would have to be a not steep.
But those tickets are like $10.
Yeah, but it would have to be a not very steep mountain to do that.
So the kind of ski you do that with actually will just go straight up a mountain. Those skis kind of suck to go back down.
Like a 60-degree angle. Like
They're like one-way skis. Like they'll slide forward but not back.
I believe it if the slope was like, because even biking, right? It's like 15 degrees is like, oh my God, I'm going straight up. I want to die.
Mountain biking, I've done like 45 plus.
I don't think you're going up for it, but
I've gone up 45 degrees before. Remember, we were at fucking Red Oaks Mill, you and I, and there was that pipe, and I went up the like 80 degree.
Oh, but that's a tiny little, right? That's not a sustained mountain.
Oh yeah, I can go up a 45 degree for like.
That's like a momentary 45 degree is different from you're going 45 degrees nonstop.
Yeah, I can go 45 degrees for like 100 feet maybe, like tops.
But like in the biking app, when you go up the French mountain, like 15 degrees is the highest, the steepest it gets at any point, pretty much, right? It doesn't go steeper than that.
All right, anyway, let's get the show done. I just hit record.
All right, what food should I get for dinner?
Ooh. We found the best normal pizza to order finally to our apartment that delivers. It's Grand Avenue Pizza.
You can't get Nona's 19 whatever?
They don't deliver to us.
Okay, and then there's the place.
There's a lot of fancy pizzas, but
there's the drama place, and then we like. There's 3 places we basically go to. Nona's, right? Milk Flour for the personal little pizza, and then the expensive place that had drama with the guy.
We do. We'll do Vesta sometimes if we want a fancy pizza, or we'll do Bibi's.
I don't like the Vesta pizza. I'll get the Vesta, Parm or whatever.
Yeah, Grand Avenue has like
lasagna,
regular ass New York pizza that comes hot and is good and real cheap.
I mean, we used to we used to get regular pizza from Retro Pizza Cafe, which is, I guess it had a fire. It might be reopening soon. Maybe it already did.
What the fuck? No one wanted Y&N? I just got it for free? The fuck?
Yeah, you can have that one. You can have that one. No one wants that one. That's not that
one.
There's
not all that's left is L&D, the meh local, and
L&D is meh.
And Weaver.
Well, it's not too meh as a local because you can get Watt and Brandon and like the Bing, right?
Yep, it's better than W and F because you can actually monopolize both of them, but W and F could get fucked by you. Anyway.
It depends who goes first. That's why we got to watch the order.
Yeah. All right, I'll figure out my par after we do the show. All right, anyway.
Usually, my strategy, and I guess I'm good at this game now, is you want to get 2 that go together. They're near each other. But in this situation, I had to hit EUR to make sure that Knox didn't get it. Because then I was like, I ideally wanted ECR EUR. Right?
Of course.
Knox took ECR and he bid too much. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to pay that much for it, but I'm not going to let you get the other half. So I have to take EUR. And now there's nothing to, EUR can't really reach anything that's available right now. So I have to do something else. But getting two that go next to each other to
You could just cross invest. That's not the worst strategy.
Nah, you just want to maximize I would cross invest if I could say, oh, well, that's going to have the most revenue. I'll cross invest in that instead of starting something new. That makes sense. But you could then be stuck with getting dumped, they could run poorly. So that's why you have to basically pick your own and get just max out the revenue.
Also remember, PD, it's not the good PD. If you're going to cross invest in whoever's directly to the right of you.
In the first and second set of
So I'm going to cross invest in EUR.
Go ahead.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to go get my beverage, and then we can do this.
I'll dump it on you if you do that.
I dare you to dump it on me. You need PD, or I'll dump it on you.
With poopy trains. With no trains. I'll just get a bunch of rusty trains. I'm like, here you go. They got one warranty left. Have a good one.
All right.
I'll let you have it with 2 trains that have one warranty left each. There you go. You can sell your shares and you won't lose half, right?
Now we got some people watching us. All right, I'll just start. Let's see. Put a marker there.
But yeah, you want to get 2 companies and you want to max their revenues in OR set 2 because OR set 1 is nothing, right?
Yep. It's just everything loses money.
You want to make sure that they're still alive at the end of OR set 2. And then you could choose, you could either dump them both completely or dump one and then float something and merge the other one. I think that's the strategy I've developed for opening this game.
Yeah, I think we're all more willing to dump instead of trying to save a company like we used to.
Because you can just sell every share with nothing stopping you. So.
Even if it's good tokens, fuck it. Good tokens with bad trains, it'll just go bankrupt and disappear anyway. Just wait.
Yeah.
All right. It's Thursday, October 28th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are reviewing the 2021 movie, Dune. So, biking home from work today like I do on a city bike, I had 2 things happen. They're both minor. They were just notable. One of them's funny and one of them was just weird. So, it's hard to get city bikes lately. Like, they're just, like, people are biking like crazy, especially in Midtown. So,
it's getting a little colder. So, and the thing is, the city bike usage does go down when it gets colder.
But not as much as you'd expect.
Not as much as you would think. People keep going even in the cold, right? And it's not that, it's cold right now if you ask me, but it's not that cold, right? It's not like...
Yeah, like I just biked home in like a dress shirt and a blazer and I was fine.
It's below 60 Fahrenheit, so I'm cold, but it's like... I could bike. If I was outside, I could use city bike, right?
So I'm at a dock where there's only one bike like left. And I'm just walking toward it, and I stand next to it, and I pull my keys out.
Someone runs up and grabs it before you?
No, I'm about to put my keys in, and this dude from behind me just says, "That's my fucking bike." And I turn around, and he was ready to fight me. So I was just like, "What?" And I just walked away. Dude was like willing to do violence.
All right.
Like he threatened me for his city bike. So I just walked away and let him do his thing. Weird, dangerous-looking dude who seemed to have problems. So whatever, I walk like a block over to another dock that has plenty of bikes, and I'm fine. So I'm biking home, and I'm on in Midtown. There's a lot of like cross streets with a narrow bike path, like a one-way, really narrow bike path. And as I'm biking, there's 2 women running in the bike path side by side, completely blocking it. And there's a bollard on the left.
That a lot, yeah.
That's fine. Bollard on the left, sidewalk on the right, with a big curb and like cars and stuff. So I come up behind him. It's a city bike. I'm going real slow. So I'm like, hey, excuse me, pardon me. Like, I'm trying to be nice. They don't respond at all. So
they got headphones in or something?
I don't know. So I ding the city bike little bell once, like ding, and immediately a Laurel and Hardy routine ensues. The woman on the left, like immediately just like panic, like startles and turns to the right. The woman on the right panics and turns to the left. They bounce foreheads against each other and fall over in a tangle. Like I stop and I'm like, are you okay? And neither one of them would talk to me. And they were unhappy with the situation. And I decided to just let them be. They did not want assistance of any kind. but I had to wait. But I had to actually wait for them to get out of the way so I could bike past them. So I'm just standing there like, but pardon me, just trying to get by.
I
Sorry.
find the problem, the culprit there really is simply that, the sidewalks are too narrow.
Yep.
Right? So
like I will never run in bike lanes, but I see a lot of people running in them, and I understand. I don't agree, but I understand.
Oh, it's like they want to run. Okay, the sidewalk is too narrow. They should take away a lane from cars to make the sidewalk wider.
Yep.
And then on top of that, it's like there's just not like, green space in that, I notice a lot more. If you see that happening, it's probably because that area doesn't have like a park. You don't see people running in the bike lane at Astoria Park because there's a fucking track there.
Yep.
Right? It's like there's no reason that
you know where I run? I run up the East Side path, and I run loops on Randall's Island. And I run over the RFK.
But in Manhattan, it's like, where can you run in Manhattan? If
East Side, West Side, Central Park.
Right. There's an enormous park in the middle, and there's things on the edge. If you're in the middle part, that's not, that's south of Central Park or north of Central Park, too far away from it, are you going to take a subway ride to then run? It's like, no.
Though in this case, the sidewalk,
a tiny little park and run in a tiny circle.
It so happens that in this particular place, the sidewalk was wide and completely open. There were no people anywhere. The only people on this whole street were these two women running in the little narrow bike lane.
Well, I guess they just,
Yeah. But I, to my credit, I did not laugh out loud because because it was really like, it's hard to describe how funny it was, how quickly the situation
Two people
devolved.
turn and bonk. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm already laughing at just my imagination. That's good stuff.
So there's so much big news that happened today that we're only going to cover a couple of things because it's Thursday.
Is there really? I don't think there's that much. Huh?
There's a lot of political news that you probably didn't pay attention to.
Yeah, it's probably just more of the same news is continuing, and you're like, you make a big deal out of some development that doesn't actually mean anything.
It's not. I wasn't talking about U.S. politics, but anyway.
The same thing around the world.
One thing that happened in the cryptocurrency world, which is a scam, just to be sure. So there's a situation right now. I am not giving investment advice of any kind. This is my personal opinion.
Don't buy any crypto anything at any for no matter what it costs, no matter what. Avoid all crypto nonsense. Do not touch.
All I will say is that Scott is a very intelligent person, and I trust his judgment generally on things. So
no matter what happens, don't touch it.
So
don't let anyone touch it.
There's a couple things going on I want to highlight because it's a weird situation. It's the kind of thing that is specifically like there are laws and regulations to make this not happen in real finance. So there's a shit coin, which is what Wall Street actually calls most cryptocurrencies. Anything like Doge and Shiba, you'll see people literally just call them shitcoin in professional settings, which is really funny sometimes when it's like an old trader guy being like, oh yeah, I got options on this shitcoin.
Yeah, man, it's pretty much, there's Bitcoin and there's the Ethereum one and everything else is shitcoin.
So I also will make it clear, I am merely stating opinion and other people's reporting, and I am not necessarily saying that I have specific...
That's not to say that Bitcoin and Ethereum aren't also shit, which they are.
Yeah, but they're not shit coins as a term that is kind of a for real term. So there was a shit coin that you've all heard of called the Doge coin, which was made as a joke, but now people invest in it.
As a joke.
Well, as a joke,
every single one of them.
They made it. They didn't even make it to make money. They made it to be funny, but then people started using it. So
they made Ethereum because they were mad about World of Warcraft.
So someone else.
True. That's not an exaggeration.
I mean, wait till people find out what Mount Gox came from. So anyway, there's a shit coin called Shiba Inu. It is just this garbage coin. That is just a picture of a Shiba Inu, and there's like trillions of them. They're worth like nothing individually.
Yeah, if you make up your own coin, you can mint as many as you want.
So this coin suddenly...
you make the rules.
So many people bought this coin like just now that it is in the top 10 cryptocurrencies on Earth. It has more capital market value on paper than like Pinterest or Etsy does. It is like... huge now, top 10.
Right, but that capital market value is calculated by saying, okay, well, the most recent person to buy this for real money paid this much for one coin, multiplied by the number of coins that exist, and the number of coins that exist was, what did you say, trillions?
Yep.
Right.
But people keep buying them.
So if someone paid a penny, a real U.S. penny for one of these coins, then the total the market value would be $1 trillion divided by 100, right? Which is still enormous.
So
right?
It is skyrocketing right now, and people keep buying it, so you could sell it for those prices, at least right now. People are not buying these coins with actual money. They're buying them with another cryptocurrency called Tether. Like, more than 80% of all the purchases of this coin are using Tether, a different coin. That coin is pegged to the US dollar. So theoretically, one Tether coin is always worth exactly $1 US.
So if I want to go buy some Tether, right? Like I give a US dollar to someone and I get a Tether, right? So I could be buying that from someone who has a Tether already.
Yep.
Right. But at some point they need to mint more Tethers, right?
Oh, so the way they did this was by saying they will hold dollars for every Tether coin that exists. Like there's a backing to the stupid crypto coin.
I could go to the main bank of Tether, and if I give them a US dollar, and they'll put it in their vault and mint a Tether and give it to me?
So that's what they said. Turns out, and there's a ton of reporting on this, and the feds are investigating them.
So what dollars are they using to pay their bills if they're keeping them all in the vault?
So they do not appear to actually have the dollars that they said they have.
You don't say.
Yeah, surprise. So people are using the pegged, backed shitcoin that's probably fake to buy the sheep coin that is currently pumped. And all of this leads to the third factor that makes this ridiculous. 70% of all the Shiba Inu coins are owned by 10 people.
Well, 10 wallets.
10 wallets.
Could be one person.
Could be one person. And no more than 10 entities own 70% of the coins.
10 entities, because they could like share the wallet number with each other, like, you know, a married couple or something. Or,
yeah, but that gets weirdly complicated because of the way these stupid wallets work.
I'm just saying, technically, right?
But what that means is that most of those coins are owned by probably the people who are doing the pump and dump. And if those people sell even a tiny fraction of their coins, they'll cash out, and everyone else, it'll drop down to zero, basically.
Right. So the point, all you have to do to avoid this scam is
don't buy cryptocurrencies.
Don't buy the coins, right? Because that person in order for that person to cash out and be wealthy, they need to actually, at the end of the day, convince real people. They have to be like, okay, I'm ready to sell all these coins in this wallet, this trillion coins. You actually need to
it's risen since I checked.
People.
It's now 78% of all sheep coins are held by like 10 people.
Right, but you need to go and find someone to actually buy those coins from you.
Yep, this is the thing that all these crypto nerds forget.
It doesn't matter what the number says on the market website or whatever. If you can't find people who will actually buy them from you, it's like, I'll be a billionaire. You have to find people who will collectively give you $1 billion.
Yep.
It's like, that's not going to happen.
There's this concept of a limit order book and liquidity. If there's a really liquid stock, there's tons of people buying and selling it. If it's not that liquid, you'll see a book where there's a ton of people willing to sell it, and there's like one weird nerd willing to buy it. And once that weird nerd bought all he wants...
You got to Magic the Gathering Black Lotus. Right, which is back in my day, it was worth $300. I don't know what it's worth now. According to, the price guides, it was worth $300 back then. I'm sure it's worth much more now. But if you had one, it's like, in order to get the $300, you had to find a human being with $300 who would agree to the exchange. It wasn't like cash where it's just guaranteed $300.
Yep.
I mean, of course, it wasn't hard to find such a person. But it wasn't like a guarantee. But if you want to sell 1 million crap coins that are technically worth $1 each to get $1 million, you have to find someone who has $1 million. All
right. So in January, a Black Lotus sold for $511,000.
I should have just robbed that fucking kid who had a whole binder full of them in 1993.
Yep.
The kid, literally, in 1993, I was at a table, and at the same table as me was someone with one of those binders where there's, 9 cards per page, and they had several pages of just Black Lotuses.
I was in a tournament where they had a contest where if you had a Chaos Orb, which is also a valuable Magic card, it was a card with a gimmick where you'd like throw it at the table.
I know. We had that card, yeah.
So that card,
I don't know if I still have it, but I might have one.
It was moderately valuable at the time, and the contest was you had to have at least one of those cards. You could enter the contest as many times as you wanted, once per card, and the contest was who can throw their Chaos Orb the furthest. And the winner got a Black Lotus. But you're risking damaging your all at the time also relatively valuable Chaos Orb.
Well, a Chaos Orb is the same as any other Magic card, so I would have practiced throwing forests.
You don't practice. You get one shot with the real card.
Right. Once I got my forest throw down pat, and I was sure I was going to win, then I would enter. But if I couldn't get the forest throw down, then I wouldn't enter.
All right, Chaos Orbs today are worth like $3,000.
All right, maybe I got one. If I got one, I'll sell it. I know I have a Demonic Tutor. What's that worth?
I feel like I think that was actually only an uncommon card, technically. I have a bunch of them. Let's see.
I got a Copy Artifact, maybe? What else do I have? Soul Ring?
I mean, I have a complete revised set.
That doesn't have Moxes and Black Lotuses.
No, because Moxes and Black Lotuses Unlimited was the last set those were in.
Yeah.
Demonic Tutor, $3,000 for a high quality one, $40.
Oh.
$40 for ours.
Yeah, mine's the used one.
Ours are worth about $40.
The actually tutored a card with it. What value? Right?
My tutor was in every fucking deck I made because.
Of course it is. It's actually a good card. All right.
So speaking of financial shenanigans, this is another story that's nuts, and I actually kind of approve of what they did. This is cool. So there's an Andy Warhol pen drawing. Of fairies. It was called what? Fairies?
I don't know. I didn't see it until today.
Yep. But it's
an original Andy Warhol artwork. The actual Andy Warhol held a pen, drew this artwork on a piece of paper. It's a physical artifact. Yep. Right? It's not a bullshit NFT. It's a real one.
Yep. It's a real work. It was valuable because Andy Warhol physically touched it. We know for a fact it is the original. Absolutely, the chain of providence is unbroken. Yep. And it sold recently to a group for a reasonable sum of money. They paid $20,000 for it.
That's for an original Andy Warhol. That's okay.
Yep. So then they analyzed it, they scanned it, they used printing materials and like a machine that will draw with a pen to make 999 extremely high quality forgeries of this drawing.
Right, but the thing is, those forgeries, even if so I think the technique they used was like, they had like a robot hold a pen and move it around a piece of paper, right?
With more, I look, they actually did more than you think. Did
they get the exact right paper and that's old?
They got the right paper. They got
right ink.
So it looks like they got correct ink. They also got correct paper.
Old ink?
Yeah, apparently.
Otherwise, because the idea is that no one should be able to tell, right? But you could tell with some aging techniques if you didn't use old paper and old pen.
Yep.
You could also, the specialist might be able to detect when the ink dried, and then they'd get you.
So part of what they did too is the robot actually recreates the strokes of the pen in the right order and the depths and everything. So supposedly so far they've had a lot of experts examine these and nobody can tell the difference. Nobody can get it right.
I think you would need to use you couldn't do it with like your magnifying glass. You would need to do it with some kind of science, take a piece of the paper and,
So we don't know. We don't know.
I don't know what kind of stuff they do.
So we don't know if someone will ever prove which one is the original again. So now they're selling all 1,000 of these for $250 each. So basically you can pay $250 for a 1 in 1,000 chance of having an original Warhol.
That's the same as when they sell, expensive raffle tickets for a luxury car.
Yep.
Right? Same deal.
But there's more to it than that. They have themselves they randomized it such that they don't know which one's the original anymore either.
How do you know that they did that? That's the thing. They could have made 1,000 forgeries and locked the real one up and laughed.
So I hope that they have not cheated this and that they honestly don't know, because that makes this 1,000 times funnier. You can read the article because their goal is
the profits on this, right? Minus the cost of them to make the reproductions, right? $250 times 1,000 is $250,000. They made a profit of $230,000.
Yep, and even better, think about what this does. On one hand, assume they did it right, and no one can tell, and the chain of providence is broken, which is what they are trying to do. They just they destroyed the idea of there being an original, and there are now 1,000 functionally identical originals.
Good.
The argument being, do you appreciate the art, or are you paying for the fact that this one human touched this? And their argument is that
the real question,
the one
right?
human touching it is a stupid thing to care about.
Right. If you appreciate the art, then you should be fine buying one that is known to be fake. Just get a print. And if you're okay getting a print, you can get a print for less than $250.
Yep. I mean, we have a painting in the bedroom.
Anyone spending the $250 is not someone who only appreciates the art, right? Because you could just, if you only wanted to have this particular artwork, in a physical form to hang on your wall or something, you could get it for less than $250.
Yep. In fact, high quality prints, like you can get painting prints that also have the 3D texture. Like only an expert is going to even notice that it's not identical to the original.
Well, I think they'll know because it's the Mona Lisa and your house is not the Louvre.
Yeah. You come over, it's like, Rim, is that a new Picasso? And I'm like...
Right. We know because we're in your apartment and there's a Picasso. That's how we know.
But the other cool thing about this is basically what it did is it turned this one work into 1,000 shares of this work. You're almost buying 1,000th of the original work, and then you get a token that is the work itself to appreciate. It's just an interesting art project as a whole, like the thing that they did. I
appreciate it as a commentary on, the art world and also the very present NFT world, right?
Yep. So
laughing in their face. So
I really hope no one ever figures out what the original one was ever. I hope it is actually impossible.
I bet the other thing is they could have destroyed after scanning. They could have just gotten rid of the original.
That would have been the pro move. No, the pro move would be
no one can tell because they're all actually identical because they're all fake ones. The real one is somewhere,
Well, no, the pro. You know what I would do if I was running this company? I'd sell 1,000 fakes, and the original would just be in my house, and I would never tell anyone.
Well, someone would find out when you died or whatever.
Oh, well, I'm dead. At that point, who cares?
Oh, so you okay.
In my will, my will literally just be, fuck you, I had the original, bury it with me.
Yeah.
So
I want to be able to laugh from the afterlife as my continued scam continues to scam beyond.
Right before you die, you launch it into space in a low Earth orbit.
Yeah. Anyway,
in the final big news, one big news we should at least talk about. Facebook, as was rumored, changed its name officially to Meta, and they're doing a whole thing. We'll probably talk about that more on Mondays and Tuesdays where it's more relevant.
Yeah,
but
as everyone predicted, they're trying to basically, fulfill some dystopian cyberpunk dream, and they're probably gonna fail.
What I hate is that a lot of these tech bros, when they think about the metaverse, they're trying to recreate the libertarian dystopia aspect of it with property ownership and real estate and NFTs and bullshit instead of just a creative place for people to interact. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I think they read too much Snow Crash. It's we need to get them watching more Ghost in the Shell, right?
Yep.
Cyberspace should be this place where, information is.
Granted, what happens in Ghost in the Shell? Because in Standalone Complex and Second Gig, every time the Major goes and spies on regular, not police cyber ninjas doing shit, they're all just sharing ridiculous conspiracy theories and being wrong about stuff and forming cults.
But I'm saying, but in Ghost in the Shell,
kind of like the real world.
Most of the message of Ghost in the Shell isn't about the cyberspace. It's about the combination of, your body with technology.
Man-machine interface. What is man? What is machine?
So since we're not cyborging, at least we are cyborging, but we're not, robot brain cyborging in our lifetimes, most likely. Right. If you just look at the cyberspace in the Ghost in the Shell world on its own, it's a lot more like the real one. It's just a place of free information sharing.
Yep.
And there's no ownership in cyberspace. There's power because you might have more computing power at your disposal. Or you might have control over information if you have large computing systems, or satellites, or who knows what hardware you own in the real world. But there's no ownership in the cyberspace itself. And that's the correct way.
But I am, regardless of the technology and what they're trying to build, we'll talk about that another time. I am so confident the reason they're changing their name is not because of the new project, but because they have fully internalized that the brand Facebook is permanently poisoned and toxic to anyone who is not wearing blinders and over the age of 50 at this point.
Well, I think it's also
like young people, like Facebook is what old people use to like buy horse paste.
Well, I mean, you look at Google, right? They got their Alphabet thing, right?
Yep.
Where it's like,
but that was clearly just a corporate like shell company to be able to be flexible for like corporate governance and like finance reasons and regulatory reasons.
I think that's also a reason that Facebook is doing this also, right? You know, Facebook is just one product of the many things that Meta will make.
But here's the difference. Google kept the Google brand on almost everything. No one talks about Alphabet.
They're going to keep the Facebook brand on Facebook.
Yep,
right?
But Meta doesn't have the Facebook brand on it because they got to get rid of that Facebook brand.
Well, Alphabet doesn't have the Google brand on it.
Yeah, because Google doesn't have the Alphabet brand on it either.
It doesn't. Facebook isn't going to have the Meta brand on it.
Yep, but I'm pretty sure Facebook is going to be in a long decline to eventually being destroyed or merged into
Meta. There have been many rumors, of and some people with pretty good takes showing like, why is Facebook doing the things it's doing is because it's just not doing well, long-term financially. It's like, social networks, that's how they do. They rise and then they fall. The young people are not using the Facebook. They got this large group of old people, and Facebook recognizes that even if it has such a large user base, that it will last for quite a while.
You can only sell so much horse paste to so many QAnon nut jobs.
All the kids are using something else, right? So that's why Facebook acquired the Instagram and the WhatsApp. But those things too, right? It's like they'll fade, just like MySpace faded, right? Everything over time. It's like, here's your user base, and then the new people use something else, and they recognize if they just stay as Facebook with that garbage social network as their primary business, that at some point, could be a decade, could be who knows, it's just going to go downhill, and that's going to be it. And that time would be within Zuck's life. He's not that old. So he has personal incentive since if he was really old, he might not do this because he'd be dead by the time Facebook died. But, he's unlikely to die soon. So he needs to make sure that, if the Facebook dies within his life, that the company, he's still CEO of something important. Right.
Now, the other thing going on here is, remember, all the whistleblowers and all those Facebook papers leaked recently and Congress investigating, and in the last
a lot of risk involved, you might lose the Instagram and the WhatsApp if there's antitrust that breaks them up.
Well, in the last 10 days, we have seen revelations that as bad as we thought Facebook was, as bad as I talk about Facebook being, it did things that are so much worse than I even imagined, and this stuff is still coming out.
I imagined all those things.
I didn't expect...
Not specifically, but in general.
Yep.
Right?
But the worst part is you can see clear evidence that every smart person inside of Facebook was constantly raising the alarm. People were quitting over this stuff. People were constantly raising ethics complaints, and it was all ignored in the name of engagement and protecting the user base of primarily angry conservatives.
There were, I'm not going to say that like this, because there were many instances of what you just described.
Yep.
There were, if you read all the documents, I didn't read all of them, but I read a handful, I guess. There were a few instances where they did take the advice and made things better.
That is true.
But those happened to be cases where taking the advice and making things better was not a severe, damage to the bottom line.
Yep. And that Facebook still needs to be broken up and literally shut down. It is a material threat to modern democracy.
Right. But Facebook wasn't, anyone who's like, oh, Facebook is being evil for the sake of being evil.
No, they're just trying to make money. They figured out.
It's only for the sake that capitalist, motive is the motive, right? They're not like, hey, let's have people die and spread, vaccine misinfo. Like,
it was more like, hey, if you stop people from spreading vaccine misinfo, they stop using Facebook. Shit.
Yeah, and then we make less money on ads.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So last, there's two other little newses. In our hometown of New York City, in Queens, in Astoria, we won a fight, like the people of Astoria, to not put a big, basically gas-powered plant right in the middle of a populated area.
In our neighborhood, there's already two
cogeneration plants.
Yeah, they're not like the main power plants. They're, the ones that turn on and help out when we're all got our air conditioners on, right? And it's, they actually call it Asthma Alley because what do you know? The largest public housing project in the world is right next to one of the power plants.
Yep.
And there's two more, right, in between in the space between the two different power plants. Not only is my apartment, but two more. So three.
They only put these power plants where poor people live.
Three total large public housing projects, including the largest in the nation. So it's called Asthma Alley because guess what? Kids who grow up in this particular area, they have more asthma than significantly higher rate than kids who live in, I don't know, a green, rich people mansion full of trees and shit, right? With no power plants nearby because NIMBYs won't let a power plant go there.
Now, we do need power plants, but they need to be built in places that make sense from a scientific and social perspective, not from a where rich people want them to go perspective.
Right. So they were basically, planning to, sort of stem the tide or whatever and, upgrade / add another, power plant on the north end that was going to burning like fracked gas that was obtained via fracking, which we shouldn't be fracking in the first place, but it's a natural gas power plant. And the people got together and we NIMBY'd that, I'm right. Yeah. But it wasn't a wrong NIMBY.
Well, from what I've read, the upgrades were unnecessary, and all they do is continue to invest in fossil fuels rather than alternatives.
Right. So I was like, hey, listen, feel free. I wasn't NIMBYing. I was like, look, feel free to build a power plant. You could build 2 power plants. So you build a power plant right next door to my fucking house, as long as it's like a solar plant or a wind plant or some kind of geothermal. I don't know. Nothing. Just something that doesn't fucking burn frack gas.
Put a thorium salt reactor right next to my apartment. I would pay. Right. I would crowdfund that shit.
You could put the nuclear one there. I don't even care.
Because remember, kids, coal power plants release more.
The modern good kind and not the old shitty kind.
Even the old shitty kind is I'd take over any coal plant. Plants
over yes, but I would if they.
Well, that's something that a lot of
gonna build the old shitty kind. I'd go out there with a protest sign saying, "Please build the newer, better kind."
But that's something that a lot of environmental activists like to forget. Like they'll point out the damage and danger of like a 2nd generation nuclear power plant, like one of the old light water reactors. But it's not light water reactor or nothing. It's light water reactor or coal or oil or something equally shitty or worse. Coal power plants release more radiation into the atmosphere than all nuclear power plants combined ever have, including Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island.
Yep. So how did we stop this? Well, there were a few, right? So because that's the reason I want to talk about it is because it's like, hey, a bad politics was going to happen and we stopped it. So looking at how we stopped it is important if a bad politics is going to happen near you and you live in a democracy, right? So there are three key things that we did to stop it, right? Well, I guess a few. They're all kind of related, but the number one thing to stop it was that we got lucky and changed the governor at the right time. The old governor would have done it, and that governor got booted.
Yep.
And we got a new governor who didn't do it. That's the main thing.
New governor's actually been pretty stand up so far, to be honest.
The new governor wants to get reelected very badly.
Yep.
So there.
Because you're as good as she is.
Competition.
As good as she is, we're still gonna primary her from as far left as we can.
Probably, yeah. So that's the key. Second key, obviously you can't replicate the first one unless you go hire a private investigator to spy on the governor. And
I mean, granted, bad politicians
find a skeleton in their closet. I don't know.
The more conservative a politician is, the more skeletons tend to be in their closets. So
harder to get those skeletons, though.
It is harder to get them,
and harder to get anyone to care about those skeletons.
Yep. I mean. Half the Republicans out there, their skeletons are like out paraded around on a daily basis, and they still get reelected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, compare, right? Anthony Weiner, skeleton came out, career over.
Yep.
Right? Not that he's good. I'm just saying he was a Democrat, right?
Yep.
And his skeleton came out, and his career was over.
Skeletons only.
What about the comedy guy who was the senator, Franken, right?
Yep.
Skeleton out, career over, right? But then what do you got in the Republican side with the Gates guy? 1,000 6-foot skeletons.
They're dancing around doing the xylophone thing in his front yard.
Exactly. So the second thing that we did is not just did we protest and organize and do all those normal protest things that you do, right? But our local politicians were on our side, helping us, organizing. So that was good. That helped as well. But during those protest activities, there were two main activities that helped the most because, number one, they had to take, by law, public comments. There was not like some change.org bullshit, right? We're talking, the agency that was in charge of this had to have a public comment period. And we submitted official public comments that go in the record. And 85% of those comments were saying, what the fuck are you doing? Right? And the second thing was they had to have a public hearings, right? Where people, they were digital because it was the Zoom times. And you go to the public hearing and make a public comment in person. And pretty much 99.9% of the people who bothered to go there, which was quite a few people because they were organized, went there and went to their face and said, you're the person who can decide to do this or not. I live here. Don't do it. And that was pretty significant, right? Your change.org ain't going to do nothing, but your official public comment will do something. So if something's happening and you don't like it and you want it to stop from happening, you should find out if there is official public comment or public hearing and organize to spam that shit. And that will have an impact of some kind and prevent you from going up from 2 power plants to 3 in your neighborhood.
Last little thing. So, not to belabor the point, but the state of Texas in the United States has basically been speed running destroy democracy lately. Like, they have done so many egregious things as a state that we literally could not list them in a reasonable amount of time. It is
several other states are watching that speed run on state DQ or whatever, and they're learning all the strats and they're gonna copy whatever works.
Yep, democracy, destruction,
Discord channel working
any
with
percent.
Each other.
So Texas has done so many bad things that like I'm boycotting Texas personally. Like I will not visit Texas. I will not do business.
I mean, I wasn't even too happy about going to Texas before.
Nope, we went to Texas for PAX. That was the only times I did go there for work a few times.
And now they're way over the line.
Yep, like if there even is a PAX South, which I doubt, considering some of the things Texas did might literally prevent there from being a PAX South, like banning vaccine mandates for events. But it's gotten so bad that today the NAACP has called for a very targeted boycott of Texas. We'll likely see them call for more. They issued a very long, very powerful statement. They're basically urging all professional athletes who are in free agency, meaning this varies depending on the sport, but basically they could switch teams. There's no like contract preventing them from doing that.
Free agency means, you can go to any team you want that you agreed to sign a contract with.
Yep. So they're basically urging any athlete in any professional sport of any kind to refuse to take free agency for any team in Texas until the voting laws, the anti-LGBT laws, there's like 10 different things. The abortion laws are all repealed. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I urge you to boycott the state of Texas.
Strategy. I don't know how many people are going to listen, if it'll matter, but it's like, you probably shouldn't go to work in Texas if you're a professional athlete.
But think about this. An individual person has, especially someone who is in a position of, do I take a job in Texas or do I take no job? It's hard to blame a person for taking the job when the alternative is nothing and they're fucked.
There's several people I know who are considered good friends and they live in Texas, but it's like, I can't be like, it's like I would like them to leave Texas. They might even want to leave or, they
might not be able to afford to.
Right. It's like, and as bad as Texas is, it's like, I don't blame the people of Texas for what is happening in Texas, right?
I blame 44% of the people of Texas.
Right. It's like, there's a large number of people, close to half even, that are good people who don't like this, or is half of the voting people. And, it's just the people who are causing the bad thing. Those are the politicians who run Texas. Those are the ones who must be harmed. Right.
Yep. But basically, the argument is that, one, if an athlete does this, it's highly visible, like it'll make the news, and that person is not risking their personal livelihood the way that like some schmuck working minimum wage is.
Nope. And also, there are people in Texas who may be bad people, but also sports fans right? If an athlete does this to them, they'll obviously hate that athlete forever and have them on their shit list and boo them when they're forced to play away games in Texas. By the way, they should boycott away games in Texas.
I think the NFL should just refuse to allow Texas teams to compete.
Well, NFL's not going to do that.
I know they're not.
But I don't think you'd be able to go that far, right? You'll probably have to play away games in Texas if you're playing against a Texas team.
Well, at some point, we might have to, because part of what the NAACP is arguing is that what's happening in Texas right now is the first domino of a very rapid destruction of democracy in America. And their argument is basically that we have to use every available tool, even with collateral damage and harm, as fast as possible to stop Texas from continuing down this path, or everyone in America is at extreme risk.
We are been at extreme risk.
Yep. That's why I encourage, like, if PAC South happens, don't fucking go to it.
I would not.
Yeah, unless it's not in Texas. If they move it to like Georgia or like a place that we might be able to.
Well,
like,
Georgia's not, the greatest, but
Georgia's doing okay. Georgia is fighting the fight.
A little bit, yeah. I'd go there right now.
I would go to Georgia. I would not go to Texas.
Not going to Florida's on the shit list too.
Yep. Or bring it to Detroit, the most non-white big city in America. That would be the most accessible PAX that America.
They wouldn't get any money. No one.
Yep, but it would also be the PAX that the most disenfranchised people and the most underprivileged people could access. I bet they could. A lot of gamers.
With the ticket price.
You could run it pretty cheap in Detroit.
Would
those
the
convention centers.
Show up? It's like,
I bet the game industry showed up to Texas to a degree. I feel like Detroit would just be easier.
Barely.
Anyway, all right, let's just do the main bit.
Thing of the day.
Yep. Just put a little marker there. But anyway, things of the day. So, you ever wonder, most people drive manual transmissions. I would argue that in the modern world, automatic transmissions are just the default, and it's weird to have a manual transmission. Like, just get rid of them. They're done. That ship sailed.
You might need it for racing or for some other reason.
Yeah, specialized cars for specialized purposes.
A big truck, right?
Yeah. God, double clutch it. Anyway, I do not miss manual transmissions. But you ever, as a kid with a manual transmission, and even with an automatic, I always thought about, like, hey, what if I just fucking put this thing in reverse while I'm on the freeway? But
usually
of course,
it'll stop you from doing that.
Yeah, automatic transmissions just won't let you do that. But this video asks the question, what if you just take a manual transmission car, like a bog standard one, and just put it in reverse while you're going at speed? And it is not what you expect. Spoilers, yes, you can do it. But you gotta muscle it. It's actually physically hard to do, but the car doesn't stop you from doing it if you make it work.
Uh-huh.
And in this video, the gentleman is able to make it happen at a pretty high speed on a highway. And it is really funny.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that. You can skip through the video to find the good part. Otherwise, there's 10 minutes of a car guy.
Is there a YouTube comment that has the time code in it to click on?
Nope. But the guy spends 10 minutes talking about transmissions, and honestly, if you don't know anything about cars, you'll probably learn a lot from this guy.
You should watch my thing of the day from a week or two ago with the guy who takes apart transmissions.
Yeah. But manual transmissions are way simpler than automatic transmissions.
He did a manual at least once.
Yeah.
But it's just so few people have manuals, so right? So it's like he's in a transmission shop. He's showing you what he's working on. It's like people come in for transmission repair. How many people come in with manuals? Not too many. So
the last time I drove a manual transmission was in the year 2005.
I don't remember.
Once I rented a truck.
Millennia.
That was it.
I think I haven't driven a real manual transmission since I don't even.
So other than that truck, the previous time before 2005ish that I drove a manual transmission.
Manuals though, lots.
It was the year 1999. When I borrowed my mom's Jeep Cherokee, Jeep Wrangler, that was manual. And I stalled it out like 5 times because I don't really drive manual transmissions. Even then, I hadn't done it in a while.
Anyway, so another thing of the day here. We got this website. So the World Series is going down between 2 piece of shit teams. We've got the team with
the racist tomahawk chop.
We got racist Atlanta versus cheating Texas.
Actual cheating. Go read about it. This is even worse than the whole Deflategate thing.
Right. So basically, no good results here in the World Series. Just ignoring that garbage fire.
I'm rooting for the umpires.
Yeah. So there's a website here that I didn't know about and a Twitter account called Ump Scorecards, and what they do is really fascinating. I didn't realize they were collecting all this data and visualizing it and all that, but it's just what it sounds like. They watch pretty much every pitch in baseball. And they look at who the ump is, look at whether they called a ball or a strike, and then looked at what the computer said it should have been, and say, oh, was that, how often does the ump get it wrong? Do they get it wrong? Are they a really good ump, right? Which umps are better than others? Does this ump biased towards high and inside or stuff like that? And I'm sure this is not only useful to fans of baseball who love this shit, but also, I wouldn't be surprised if teams are looking at this and saying, all right, who's the ump today? Oh, that guy, he'll call you strikes even if you throw it a little low. The pitcher knows that. That can help you out.
Yeah.
And this is all publicly available, very well organized, and very
what would the stats be like?
Data.
Imagine doing that for hockey. We got the guy who never calls cross-checking.
Yeah. And you can even organize it. It's the least accurate umps are getting it right only 91% of the time. It's that means 9% of almost 1 out of 10 pitches they're getting wrong. I think that's really bad, right? The best ump gets it right 96% of the time. So that's not too bad, right?
Yep. Computers can get it right 100% of the time. They just don't fully leverage that technology.
The tennis thing always gets it right. The eagle, whatever. I don't know what they call it.
Yep. So yeah, Meta Moment, GeekNights Book Club book, Tale of Genji. We're reading it.
Check this out. I got the new, I guess the light is going to make it so you count. There you go.
Ooh, that's the new Paperwhite.
Yeah, I got the new, because I had a Kindle, way back in the day. I don't know what the fuck happened to it.
Yeah.
And I've been using the Kindle app on my phone when I was on the train, but you don't want to read on your phone if you don't have to.
Nah.
And I'm not on the train anymore. So I was using the Kindle app on my iPad, but I have a giant iPad and there's a keyboard attached to it. So reading laying down was holding this heavy iPad up in the air for in Genji, you're reading for an extended period, not a short period.
Yep.
So it's and also, the beach, right? So I would have bought the Paperwhite earlier and had taken it to the beach this year, but I realized, wait a minute, the Kindle Paperwhite is a several-year-old device. That's got to be getting updated soon, right? And sure enough, it was. So yeah, I literally got this yesterday, and it was released yesterday. So hopefully this will last me many years, go to many beaches. That way I don't take my iPad to the beach. So yeah, because I guess that will help me. I already read some Genji just because, you're a nerd. You're excited to use your new technological doodad.
So we'll get right into it. We'll really briefly talk, but assume we're going to spoil some Dune stuff. So if you've never read
a book club episode on Dune, the book. So if you haven't read Dune, the book, you could, if you have, you can go listen to that episode if you haven't.
Yep.
Read the book, right? Or I guess you could just watch this movie and listen to this episode.
Yep. I would not say it's bad. If you watch this movie, it's pretty good at conveying what the book conveys. You could do fine by just watching this movie.
But we're gonna spoil, I guess book and movie, but they're almost the same, so it's not really any different.
Yeah.
There's having read the book, nothing in the movie was out of place, right? It's I was effectively 100% spoiled on it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, we're going to spoil the book and movie of Dune. There's no point. It's a really old book. It's older than me, I think, or as old as me at least. So
all I'll say before we will just start spoiling stuff about Duncan, Idaho, is that the movie is really good and you should see it.
I just watched an HBO Max, no problem.
Yep, it just worked. It was perfectly fine quality. My sole complaint was that the dialogue was in many scenes a little bit hard to hear because it was way low in the mix compared to all the sound effects.
Right. So that's a common problem I've noticed. I'm sure I'd love to talk to a Hollywood audio expert to find the reason for this, but I've noticed this pattern pretty much especially with Blu-ray rips or pretty much anything that has a surround Hollywood movie theater mix. If you take that mix and just play it in your home without remixing it somehow, it's even on sometimes you'll have a 5.1 surround system and the voices will be on the center channel where they belong, but they'll just be so much quieter than the explosions and the music and the everything else. And it's like in the movie theater, I guess that's not a problem because there's a ton of speakers behind the screen. But for some reason at home, it becomes a problem. And I'd love for someone who knows a lot about that to explain what the deal is. But I've noticed that a lot for the past 20 years.
I've also noticed it more with the so-called prestige movies than with like every other regular old movie. Just on average.
But it's like, even if I take like a Star Wars, obviously not the ones that I'm watching, which are the special, despecialized editions. But if you get a Star Wars Blu-ray, it's like actually the voice is too quiet.
But it's visually stunning. Like the acting's great, the story is great.
Stunning, but the colors are. It's like it's either brown or gray.
Yeah, I think that works though, considering what's going on. And also, when you get shots of Caladan, it's more colorful. But then we don't go back there, obviously.
Barely.
Yeah, it's an austere future.
It's not brown, so it's a contrast.
Yeah.
Just like the Harkonnen planet's black, but it's.
But yeah,
like it's never multiple colors at once.
If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, stop listening because we're going to spoil a bunch of stuff. And if you only saw the movie, also we're going to spoil some stuff because the movie stops kind of in the middle of the book right before things get weird.
Yeah, they broke so that's something. They broke into 2 parts, right? That's a common complaint nerds have when a nerdy book gets turned into a movie is all the stuff that gets cut out because books are fucking long. If you made a movie that had everything in the book, it would be forever. You'd be in the theater for 10 hours.
Which I'm fine with, but not everyone is.
Right. So what they did in this case, rather than cut things,
they did cut a lot.
I mean, they didn't cut nothing, but they didn't cut anything that was that significant.
They cut the concept of mentats. They showed it and they implied what it was, but they didn't like explain it at all.
That's true, but yeah, isn't Hawat is the mentat, right?
And DeVry.
I guess DeVry didn't appear, did they?
Yeah, they died right away. Anyway.
What was I saying?
But yeah, when you adapt something like this, you can either cut a ton out or make split it up and make multiple movies. You can go too far, like The Hobbit, where they made way too many hours of movie for how long that book actually is.
Well, The Hobbit also changed way too much stuff and with too significant a change.
And The Hobbit got like 80% through the book at the end of its first movie.
Yeah, I didn't even watch past the first Hobbit.
I watched the second one. It was bad, and I didn't watch anything after that. I never even saw Smaug.
Yeah. Anyway.
So,
this Dune movie that just came out. So, first of all, I don't think it's like a masterpiece 5-star movie. It's not like fucking Seven Samurai or some, Rear Window or some shit, right? It's not like... But in terms of take a nerdy book and turn it into a movie, I don't know how you can do better.
No,
right?
It didn't cut out anything that mattered. The casting was great. Emily has not read the book. I've read the book. We watched it together. We both reacted to it about the same level because knowing things makes some minor elements pop more or be interesting, but not knowing things in no way takes away from the story that's being told. And in fact, the movie...
Spoilers didn't spoil, did they? Huh?
Yeah. Well,
that's a thing. I get it.
Well, no, because in this case, I was mostly... I go into a movie like this primarily knowing what's happening. I'm just curious, how are they going to do it? How are they going to portray this? What is this mentat going to act like? Oh, they did an eye thing. That's cool. I do like the eye thing they do.
Okay.
But the visual storytelling is really good. But really, it's that it actually tells you what's happening much more directly than the book does. In that the book, if you read it closely, it's obvious what the Emperor's plan is. But a lot of people don't get it, and it was surprising at the end.
The book is never saying the book is like, all right, something's happening. Why is the Emperor telling the Harkonnens to leave the spice planet and bring the Atreides in? Why are they doing that?
Wait, why are there Sardaukar there? That's weird. I thought the Emperor was on the Atreides side.
Whereas this one is like, yes, The Emperor is doing it because he fears Atreides is getting too powerful, and might overtake the Emperor. Therefore, he is doing this to kill off the Atreides in a way that they can get away with it.
Yep.
They just spell it out for you.
But they're also
spoon it right in.
It's also doing a really good job of spelling out the Chekhov's things that are critical to the second movie. Like, for example, they bring up in the movie multiple times that there's no satellites around Dune. Mm-hmm. Well, around Arrakis.
Yeah.
But they make it clear that is why the Emperor was able to send the Sardaukar in there, because there'd be no record of it, because everyone who saw them would be dead. But, as you know, if you've read the book, the fact that there's no satellites there is a big part of what the Fremen are up to, and also a big part of what the Emperor's up to, and also a big part of how the entire plot evolves in the end.
Yep. But yeah, it's like, I'm sure if I only read the book once when we did the book club.
Yep.
I attempted to read it in my youth and wasn't a fan then. And I guess it's okay now. I'm not like a huge Dune fan.
I like that book a lot, but I like the Prince of Nothing books a lot too. It's about on that level of like how much I enjoy the book.
Way more than Dune.
I guess
the thing about Dune.
The only problem with I was about to say the Prince of Nothing. The problem is the later books aren't quite as good, but Dune.
Well, I didn't. I only ever read one Dune book.
I also only ever read one. So,
was it? But Dune. I guess even if I'm not like a huge fan of it, right? It's still a bunch of fun, right? Because you get all these proper nouns, you get worms, right? You get It's just fun to do. Dune stuff is fun. That's why there's so many Dune memes.
Right? Also, I gotta say the casting and the acting was like absolutely perfect. They made Duncan Idaho so absolutely likable. When he shows up, you're like, that guy's awesome. And then when he dies, you're like, what the fuck? You killed my favorite character right away?
Well,
what the fuck?
He was gonna die though, because I read the book.
Yeah, but it's funny because everyone who has not seen Dune or read Dune, like even those people have heard of Duncan Idaho because that name's ridiculous. And Dune fans are always like, yeah, Duncan Idaho's the best character because he does come back in like almost every Dune book.
Right. It's like I haven't read any other Dune book, but I know that there's like clones of Duncan Idaho and shit. Yep. Right? Something like that.
They keep cloning Duncan Idaho and bringing him back because even in universe,
he's too cool and fun and awesome.
Yep. Even in universe, people are like, oh yeah, that Duncan Idaho, got to get me some of that. Bring me another. I broke mine. So
yeah.
But people watching this movie who don't know anything about Dune are like, oh, that's Duncan Idaho. I see why everyone... And then he's dead. And they're like, what the fuck? He's not coming back in the second movie, guys. Like, That's it. He's gone.
Right. So for me, a big complaint I have with a lot of things, right? I make this complaint actually a lot about all those superhero movies, right? Because like you read like a superhero comic and there's this surface level story. Let's say X-Men, for example, right? There's like a surface level story in X-Men of, oh yeah, this bad Magneto and he's going to do something bad and these guys fight. And most people will go see the movie and that's what they'll take away from it, right? Good guys, bad guys fighting. But X-Men has a deeper story. Sometimes that deeper story or deeper message will be, genocide against, this minority mutant people, discrimination, etc. But there'll be even more layers to that. Like I think I made the Claremont Twitter account a recent thing of the day, right? You can they get pretty deep in the comics, but then, and there are movies that go deep, but the movies based on written material they remove the depth, right? A lot of times, you'll see, a movie based on a book and the movie is just the shallow part and they cut out the deep part because it's a Hollywood blockbuster. Yep. So
this one left the deep part in.
Expected. Right. So in Dune, right, the big, from my reading of Dune, and I definitely said this in the episode we did on the book.
I'll link to it.
Yeah. The deep parts of Dune, the most significant part is the ecological message, right? It's mostly a story about the ecology of the planet, right? The spice, is some kind of worm jizz or some shit like that. Right?
Well, the water, the fact that the lifestyle they live there is almost a form of ecological terrorism by the colonial powers. It could have been a paradise planet. It, by all rights, should be a paradise planet.
Right. The Fremen, right? They don't try to change the planet, right? They live in harmony with their environment, right? Instead of coming in and messing it up and stealing and pillaging, right? That whole thing going on. And I'm like, well, that's the deep message. I guess this movie's going to cut that part out. And you know what? They fucking didn't cut it out.
Not only did they not cut it out, it's driving straight at it at light speed.
Yeah, as the movie goes on, they zoom in on it, and then more. It's like it's there, and they keep, they don't let it go. They're like, yeah, this is gonna be a focused, important thing. We're not letting go of that message. And I was like, oh, golf clap.
Yeah.
Also, clap if you keep that shit.
Liet Kynes, like the imperial judge of whatever, like the whole plot around that character. Yep. The casting for that character, like changing it from a man to a woman, getting the perfect actress to play that character, and that character really, really driving home the ecological message, and then going out in a perfect blaze of glory. Like, that was just such a great set of scenes right there.
Yeah. Now, there were some changes, but none of those changes were changes that were like significant in terms of making Dune not Dune anymore.
Yeah, right? They left out a bunch of extra desert scenes that didn't matter, where like Jessica gets buried in some sand. They left out all the like dinner parties and like local political intrigue that led up to the attack. The movie starts, Harkonnen attack like basically 2 days later.
Yep. A good example of a positive change they made, right, is in the book. The Baron Harkonnen is sort of a fat phobia thing going on there, yep. Right? Body shaming. I mean, he's still large, and I guess they didn't, but it's like, I don't know.
They made him, like, you look at his neck, they made him more deformed and less just a fat person like he was often portrayed.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there, but they also, in the book, Baron Harkonnen was like a gay pedophile, right? So it was homophobic and such. And that aspect completely removed, which is, right, good.
Yep.
That's unnecessary, right? We don't need the bad guy to be you make the only gay person a pedophile and also the big villain. It's like, what message are you sending there, right? Frank Herbert was sending that message, but we don't need to spend that message anymore. We'll just get that one out of there.
Let's focus on the ecology message.
It does not harm the story in any way. He's still the bad guy, right? You know he's the bad guy because he's in this place that's all black and he's killing people. Right?
They also, as a stylistic choice, the way they make him float is hyper menacing in a very Darth Vader way, and I appreciate that.
Much better than
that scene where he just like floats up over the table was perfect. Yep. Like, I got a little chill.
Old movie way of floating was much not as good.
Yep. Or when he comes out of his vat, that was a lot like when the shell opens around Darth Vader when the Admiral comes in to report to him.
Right. And then, he's actually kind of like a scary, dangerous dude, which you see in the scene where the poison gas comes out of the tooth, right?
Yep.
It's like, so, he's dangerous and capable. He's not just like an evil blob, like a Krang the Brain from Ninja Turtles or something.
But that was another good change of, they didn't leave in the fullness of the plot around the doctor and the conditioning and like the entire convoluted plot that led up to the assassination attempt on the Baron. They just distilled it down to, dude knows his wife is dead. He's pretending to go along with the Baron and betray them, and he's actually betraying Atreides, but he's actually doing all of it to assassinate the Baron. They just distills it down to that essence. It doesn't get into all those other details that frankly weren't that relevant to the story. And that aspect still like resonated really well. Those scenes were great.
Yeah, what else is there to say about this movie? The whole time I was watching the movie, because I've read the book, right, I was thinking about the final scene of the book, which is, sort of the end of the book is like this big climax of awesomeness, right?
Yep.
And I know exactly what happens in that scene. Hopefully they don't change it, because that would be very,
They did in the very beginning when they come in. It's like, what's that? Oh, that's the shield wall. It protects the entire city.
Right. But, so hopefully they don't change the ending. But while I was watching it, it made me excited.
Right.
And, had positive anticipation for like, the final scene of this book is awesome. I want to see that final scene at the end of this movie, right? Like I want to see it play out on the screen, even though I know what happens.
Yep.
Right. So, which means I was enjoying what I was watching. Simple as that, right?
I guess the other thing I can point out is that one thing I like is a big theme in the book, like the secondary theme, other than the ecology, and also other than the whole like transhumanist, what are the Bene Gesserit and everyone else actually up to with the breeding programs. It did a good job of like weaving that in without focusing on it. But I appreciate a big part of the book was the fact that the religion of the Fremen was fake. It's a generic religion that the Bene Gesserit seed all throughout the galaxy, or the universe even, just in case a Bene Gesserit ever gets like stuck on a planet or has a problem, they can like figure out what aspects of that core religion, like how it got integrated in local society, and then use the local superstitions and religion to get their way. It very subtly does that in the movie when you see Jessica like talking to the Fremen, and when they're like out for the first time in the desert, you see her and Paul sort of interact until they figure out like how much the religion is there, and then they just dive into it. And I like how you see them like bickering with each other with their sign language the whole time. Like I thought it did that well, and it didn't lose the idea that the Bene Gesserit planted the religion in the first place, while also showing that maybe the religion was planted there for more than one reason, or maybe no one anticipated that Paul might use it more than they expected to. Like that whole element is just well done.
Right. So the reason the religion is planted, right, it sort of depends on the level of the perspective of how much spice and how much into the future a person sees, right? So at level 0, you can't see into the future at all. It looks like a legitimate religion. That's what they believe, right?
Yep.
The next level, right, like Bene Gesserit level, they can, it's like, okay, like what you said, they plant it there, in case, because they might need it in the future, and they're planning for the long haul. But it's like step 3, Bene Gesserit, full plan. It's like, we knew that exactly this would happen, and therefore we plant this seed thousands of years ago in the Fremen people just for this moment. We know it's going to happen.
Yep.
Right? It was all set in advance, and now the dominoes are falling, right? Finally.
But then you go even further. Oh no, maybe Paul spiced too much and saw beyond what you saw, and now it's not your plan anymore.
The K came before.
Yeah.
Darkness. Spice me up. So the worm, right? The thing with the worm, on the one hand, I kind of, the worm is still a pretty good design for the scenes in the movie, because there's a lot of scenes like, the worm comes straight up and it becomes like a big hole, sort of like the Sarlacc. So visually, for the scenes they were going for in the movie, the design of the worm works. But just personally, aesthetically, I like the worm that's like the tip is split into 3 flaps. That style that you see in a lot of illustrations.
I'm pretty ambivalent on that piece.
I mean, it's really minor, right?
Yeah.
But I just like the 3 flap worm, right? Like, but in addition to that, in the book, from what I remember, is sort of like when they make Paul ride the worm. Spoilers for part 2.
Yeah.
When Paul rides the worm, like if there was any instance of anyone riding a worm before then in the book, I didn't see it. I must have missed it. So when Paul rides the worm, it's sort of like simultaneously like you can ride a worm. Right? You're getting hit with both of those at once. Whereas in this book, and in this movie, there's a scene where Kynes, right, holds up the 2 hooks and is ready to ride the worm. And then right at the end of the movie, they show you in the distance someone riding a worm. So it's like, someone can ride a worm now before Paul rides a worm.
Yep.
At least I don't know if that was different because A, I don't remember the book, or B, it was different from the book.
I don't remember exactly how that scene went down, but I love when Leah is just pounding the sand with her fist to make sure the Sardar car go down with her.
Yeah. But yeah, it's riding a worm is pretty significant.
So in terms of, I like how the movie did not explain how the shields work at all, but the way they were visually portrayed makes it extremely clear the important parts about those shields, except for the laser gun thing, which didn't come up yet.
I mean, that's really most of what making the movie is, right? Since they didn't really change too much plot, most of the decision and the artwork of making this movie was, okay, here's what happened, right? Here's the world, but what does it actually look like? All we have is a description of words. That description isn't like some rock solid like description where you could go to a CNC mill and create the world of Dune, right?
Or you've got a long dialogue of someone explaining this is how a shield works, and you don't want to do that in a movie.
Right. You need to look at those words and be like, okay, they just described what this room looks like. And so you imagine the room in your head, and now you need to get, the people who make the set, the people who make the props, the actors, the costume people, the cameras, right? The shots, everything to make a 2D image that matches that text, right? And then so someone watching it, understands the story as if they were reading it. And they accomplished that very, very well, right? Nothing that you saw on screen didn't match. There's not like, oh, those ships don't look like that, or that's not what a shield should look like. This it's like,
but the way it turns red when something gets too close to the skin, and how something moving slow, it conveyed what was paragraphs and paragraphs of explanation into the book, visually, simply, and it worked.
Yeah, and not with any incorrectness. Right?
Yep. I also do like the casting of Paul, because he's basically just a mumbly teen who is very rapidly outstripping his mother's powers, and I think he's playing it really well. He's just a mumbly, angsty teen who is...
they casted everyone really well, I think.
Yeah, Gurney is great.
The book.
Is there any casting I don't like? No. Not one.
But they could have... it's like they could have gone harder, right? In terms of they could have made Atreides not white. They could.
I mean, yeah, they could have.
You could have made Paul a woman, right? You could have flipped it, like Bene Gesserit are dudes, right? And everyone else is ladies or whatever.
At least I'm glad with Liet that was a really good casting choice and a really good character.
Yeah, there were some issues though in terms of a lot of those characters that were not the white people, right, were killed, right?
Yep.
So you get your the doctor, Kynes, all these choices to go with not white people, and those people all sort of died.
You'd better have more non-white people in book 2 who don't die.
Right. So it's like they did more than nothing.
I don't think we know who's playing the Emperor yet.
Yeah, I do suspect the Emperor might be a black person.
I really hope so, especially considering Liet and the Imperial stuff.
Also based on the Imperial stuff that you saw in during the opening scenes, I think it could be likely.
Yep, that's what I'm hoping
for. Maybe someone out there already knows who's playing the Emperor. It's been announced or whatever.
Yep, I don't pay that much attention.
Yeah, they did only just announce that. We assumed part 2 was coming, but they only just now firmly 100% confirmed they're going to make the part 2. So
yeah,
but that wasn't much of a confirmation. It's like, tell me something I don't know.
Now, what I wonder is if they make part 2 and now we've got the first Dune book, either they keep going or they don't. And I want them to keep going. I want to just go crazy.
So that's the thing, is not having read any book beyond book 1. I still know enough to know those books are out of control.
Yeah,
right?
Bring me some Benetalaxu tanks, and I want to see what the fuck these movies are.
They did sort of show you a tank a little bit, but yeah, it's not a...
Yeah, show me the second, the third Duncan, Idaho.
Right. So it's like, if they keep sticking to those books as they have now, even if they keep putting in the same budget, it's like, it's going to fall apart because... the books, right? It's like,
well, or here's something that can happen. Dune, because all the reactions I saw from people who had never read Dune, who just saw the movie, were mostly like, wow, that went really hard. That was way more intense than I expected. Oh, it was all crazy. I don't think they realized that maybe 10% of the crazy shit happens in what we've seen so far. What's going to happen in this second movie is way off the rails of what most people are expecting. Mm-hmm. If they make more of the movies, this might be a way to remind people that movies can be fucking weird and still be good, and open the door to more mainstream.
I don't think they have the courage. I don't think they have the courage to do that, right?
I don't either, and we won't know until after the second movie is done. If they announce a movie 3, I'm going to be unreasonably excited because I want to see AAA, blockbuster, big budget, big director movie that is as weird as what I know happens in the 4th and 5th Dune books.
Right. It's like the stuff that I know that happens in those books is way out there stuff that is possibly not great as a story.
A lot of people say unfilmable, similar to like the culture books.
Right. But even if I agree with that, I don't know if I agree with that because I haven't read them. But if I believe them, then that means that A, I'm not going to be too interested in those books. But B, I love seeing fucked up nonsense on movies, right?
Yeah. Fucked up existential trippy space shit that's 4 hours long, like hook it into my veins.
End of Eva, end of 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yep.
All that. I love that kind of like abstract.
You want to get Scott to watch the MCU? Go hard into the weirdest space shit, and Scott will probably watch those movies.
It's abstract art. It's like a Picasso, right? So when you get sort of that abstract nonsense in text form, right? It's not that abstract because you're right. But like we read 2001 for the book club, right? And that ending was not as abstract as the movie's ending, even though they were pretty close to each other, right? Because the movie doesn't say words, you're just showing you images.
Yep.
Right? It's like you look at a Picasso and you're like, there's no context, there's no, it is what you see. So you could take some nonsense book like, oh yeah, the dude's a worm god, see in the future, who knows what the fuck's happening. And if you just show that while no one's talking, it's like, that suddenly makes it good, even if you don't change anything else.
And if they do make the more books, I trust that they would do it the right way. Because the final thing I would say is that the biggest success of this movie is not explaining things with words and just trusting the audience to fucking figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That is the primary strength of this movie.
Yeah. So one last thing, I guess, because I'm hungry.
Yeah, same.
A lot of times what you see in series in general, what matter the medium, even if they're not super long series, is that they'll start off one way and switch things up, right? So like Adventure Time starts, season 1, but then season 2 onwards is like, what Adventure Time really is, right? Or, but in this case, Dune is like the flippy floppy. It's like the book 1 is the good part, and then goes later on leave, right? Whereas Adventure Time, or some other things, you might tell someone, get past the beginning,
get past the gut grinder, and suddenly you're going to care a lot about these characters,
right? Where this is, just read the first one and stop. It's opposite deal. It's not like they learned as they went on. It's they messed up more as they went on. Went too far.
So hopefully we'll find out what the Emperor's deal is. We'll see a second movie someday in the future because they're definitely making it. They've announced it like 5 times that they're making the sequel.
And I guess just the final thing is I'm encouraged that someone was able to take an old nerdy book and translate it into a movie, so accurately, but I'm disappointed in that they did it to an already popular old nerdy book.
But we know Shattered Earth is getting this treatment. So.
Yeah, that's true. But I would love to see a lot more doing it to newer, right, not ultra popular books, or even just fucking original stories that don't already exist in a medium.
But you want to get me excited, do this for The Prince of Nothing. Do it for any culture book. I don't even care which one. Those might actually be unfilmable.
I just say go find some fantasy novel series that's only read by not white, not dude people, right? And do that, right? Don't be going for the popular mega hits always.
Yeah, but at least
they're Dune has served their monies because this ain't cheap. But
Dune has enough cultural cachet to where it might open the door on studios being more willing to take a risk on weird stuff again, because that that ebbs and flows in Hollywood in terms of will they make a weird movie or will they make extremely safe movies.
It might also maybe teach at least one Hollywood executive, if we're lucky, a lesson of you don't got to keep fucking changing shit. Just follow the book and you'll be all right.
Yep. But isn't it too weird that like the the reason, like the assassination plot with the Baron, like isn't that unnecessary? No, just throw it in. It'll be fine. You get a cool weird scene where he's hiding on the ceiling and it's awesome.
Yep.
That was a good scene when they come in, like the hazmat suits, like, oh no, everyone got assassinated. And he's up there just barely alive, coughing and pissed.
Yep.
And you know that he is pissed. He's not afraid. He's